Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's assembly. And you can see that next to me in my office, not only have I got these at home, but I've also got them at school to cheer me up. I have some daffodils, and yesterday we learned the proper name, the botanical name for daffodils is that they all belong to the family of Narcissus. And we used our brilliant Greek myth book to find out who Narcissus was and why these beautiful yellow flowers were named after him. Well, my Greek myth story went down a storm yesterday. I had lots of lovely feedback about that. So we're going to read another couple for the rest of this week. And today's Greek myth, going back thousands of years, has been inspired. I was inspired to read this one by some things that I really like that I've got at home. Have a look at this. It's a feather. Can you think, or can you have a guess, what kind of bird this feather might have come from? And I'll tell you now, it wasn't from a bird that's visited my bird feeder. The update on the bird feeder, by the way, is that it's taking the birds a little bit of time to feel confident about using it, but I'm sure in time they'll all be coming to visit. That's one feather, and then I'm going to show you another one, a teeny one. Now, have a look at that. Can you see that brilliant blue splash there? Now, this is a feather that I have collected very near to where I live, and that's because we live near the woods, and there's a particular bird, it's very shy, very rarely see it, that lives in the woods next to our house. And it lives in the woods next to our house because its favourite food is acorns, and the woods that we live next to are oak woods, so they're filled with oak trees, which of course in the autumn bear fruit, bear the acorns, and this bird comes to collect the acorns and hide them actually for the winter season. And this bird, if I turn my computer round, turn my camera around, I'll show you a picture. Here he is. He's called a jay, and can you see where my feather must have come from? It must have come from the wing section, because it's got that brilliant blue little bit there just on the wing of the jay. So that was that one. And then the other one was from when I was on my holidays. Oh, it seems a long time ago now, in Cornwall. And this is a buzzard. So this is a bird of prey. And it was flying just above the meadows where we were walking. And then we found a buzzard's feather, which looks a bit to me like it must have come from his tail section, looking at the pattern. And today's Greek myth, it is about feathers, but it's about something else too. I think there's a message. I think a bit like Aesop's fables, there's a moral to this one. See if you can work out what it is. I've been thinking about it, and I can think of a few things. See what you think. It's called, the boy's name is Icarus, and the tale is called The Boy Who Flew Too High. Find out where he got his feathers from. Icarus was an inventor. He paced around the tiny room at the top of the prison tower for the 1000th time. "I'm bored," he complained. "King Minos can't possibly keep us locked up here forever, can he?" "Oh, he could do far worse than that," answered his father, Daedalus, who was also an inventor. "I helped his enemy Theseus escape, and that's a crime punishable by death. The only reason he hasn't killed us so far is that I'm far too useful to him alive." Sighing, he bent over his clay tablet and continued to work on his new design for a bridge. As long as he could produce groundbreaking inventions, the king would spare them. But it was a terrible burden, knowing that both of their lives depended on the success of his latest idea. "Oh, why did he have to lock me up in this tower as well?" Icarus muttered sulkily. "I could be plotting your escape by now." Daedalus didn't look up from his work. "I imagine that's exactly why he locked you up, son." Icarus slumped onto his elbows on the window ledge. So there they are, locked up in ancient Greece by King Minos, having to work without any freedom in a really tall tower. Luckily, they're both inventors. He stared at the doves in the sky enviously. Picking up a stray feather and stroking it idly against his cheek, he murmured, "If only we could fly. We could escape this tower and go wherever we wanted. That's it, Daedalus exclaimed, flinging down his tablet. You have hit the nail right on the head with your feather. Well, what do you mean? Said Icarus. It's simple. I'll make us wings and we'll fly away, said Daedalus, already scratching busily at a fresh tablet. Within an hour, he'd come up with a rough design for human-sized wings. That's the easy part. Now we have to collect enough feathers to make the things. From that day on, they gave half their tiny daily ration of bread to the birds. More and more birds flocked to the little tower, eager to be fed, and each day Icarus collected the stray feathers left behind by the birds and stuffed them under a straw mattress. After a few months, they had so many feathers the mattress could barely stay on the floor. Icarus and his father had grown quite thin from their reduced rations. The lighter we are, the better, joked Daedalus. Still, before we waste away entirely, I'd better get on with making those wings. He reached out of the window of the tower and pulled some vines from the wall. After stripping them of leaves, he wove their supple stems into 4 large frames. Next, he collected all the wax that he used for making design models and laid it in the sunshine to soften it. He dotted the softened, sticky wax along the frames and pushed feather after feather into it. Daedalus had studied the birds carefully over the last few months and modified his design according to what he learned. He made sure that each feather overlapped the last and lined them up in order of size to look just like real birds' wings. Icarus watched in fascination as the wings took shape, and when they were finally ready, he ran his fingers over the soft feathers and glanced at the sky. Do you really think it'll work? He asked. Have any of my inventions ever failed? Daedalus replied. He lifted one pair of wings onto his son's shoulders and tied them on. Icarus raised his arms and flapped them cautiously. To his delight, his feet left the floor and he hovered in the air for a moment before dropping gently down again. Icarus scrambled eagerly onto the window ledge. Looking down, he could see all the way to the foot of the tower. It was a dizzying sight. But then he turned his gaze to the sparkling sea and the vast empty sky above and felt excitement rising in his chest. Icarus took a deep breath, spread his wings and leapt into the air. The wind caught him straight away and he glided smoothly out above the sea. And there's Icarus. Look at the feathers that have been used to make his wings. Icarus thinks they're going to escape. The air rushed past, ruffling his hair, and a broad grin spread across his face. Flying was incredible. A shadow fell over him as his father flew overhead. Icarus, careful now, he said. Don't fly too low in case the sea spray dampens your feathers. And don't fly too high in case the sun melts the wax. Just follow right behind me. Flapping his wings steadily, Daedalus took the lead and Icarus followed obediently. Far, far below, farmers were working in a patchwork of fields. Icarus was fascinated by how small everything looked. Tiny sheep grazed in tiny meadows, tended by tiny shepherds. Before he knew it, they were gliding past craggy cliffs and out over the open sea. A lone fisherman looked up as they passed and dropped his net when he saw the winged figures soaring across the sky. Oh, they must be gods, he whispered in awe and counted himself lucky to have caught a glimpse. Icarus certainly felt superhuman. He was so used to flying now that it was as if he'd done it all his life, and he was growing mighty bored of looking at the soles of his father's dusty old sandals. It was high time for a bit of fun. He swooped down to the sea and skimmed low over the glittering waves, so low that he could see jade green turtles and schools of silvery fish swimming beneath the surface. Then he flapped his wings and climbed higher and higher into the sky, until even the birds were beneath him and the sky was his alone. His father's voice came floating up from beneath. Icarus, come down at once, you're too high. Frowning, Icarus flapped his wings and flew even higher. Why shouldn't I enjoy myself, he grumbled, squinting down at his father, who by now was so far below him he looked no bigger than the sparrow. The light on the sea was so dazzling, Icarus shut his eyes. I'm free at last, he thought, as he soared closer and closer to the sun. He didn't realise that the sun's hot rays were melting the wax in his wings. He didn't see the feathers dropping, one by one. But Daedalus did. When feathers from his son's wings began to flutter down, he shouted himself hoarse, trying to warn him. When he realised he was out of earshot, he flew as quickly as he could to reach him, but Icarus was too far away. By the time Icarus opened his eyes, it was too late. His wings were almost bare skeletons. He flapped and flapped, but the air just whistled through their empty frames, and he began to fall. Daedalus could only watch, his eyes filling up with helpless tears as his son plummeted through the air, flapping his useless, broken wings, and plunged into the deep blue sea. When Daedalus reached the spot where Icarus had disappeared, all that was left was a scattering of pale feathers floating on the water. So that is the story of Icarus, the boy who flew too close to the sun, which is a great story, isn't it? I love how they made those beautiful wings out of feathers that they'd borrowed from the birds. But yeah, really sad ending. So what do you think the moral of that story is? I was having a think. I think it could be a few things. You must tell me what you think. It could be to do with respecting your elders, couldn't it? And really, he should have listened to his father because he just got carried away, didn't he? It could be to do with confidence and getting your confidence levels just right, because perhaps if you're too overconfident and you just think you're brilliant and that you don't have to listen to anyone else, then that could end in disaster. But then if you're underconfident, you're too close to the sea, then that could also end in disaster. So maybe it's about confidence. Maybe it's about ambition. Have a little think. What do you think the story is, the moral of the story to Daedalus and Icarus? And tomorrow we're going to find out about how spiders became with another Greek myth. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. I'll see you for Thursday's assembly, if not before, round and about. Have a good day, everyone. Bye for now.